Hello, I'm the Toycat and welcome back to the video. Today we're going to talk about the smallest gaps in Minecraft. This is something I've been curious about for quite some time now, because if you ever are building in multiplayer, or you just want to have a fortified single player base, then one thing you've got to keep in mind is having gaps in your build. One is for like window holes, so you can see the outside world and know what's going on out there, but the second of all is if you do decide to get into some combat, so just bear in mind you can see all of that versus how little they can see, but the second reason is to keep in mind how well that works for combat, because if you can only see a tiny hole and they can see you very clearly, it's going to be very easy for you to hit them versus the intruder to hit you. And today I figured I'd show you some of the smallest gaps so that if you, wow, I hit on the first hit, but yeah, so that if you wanted to learn how you could do this and basically have a very fortified base, then you could learn some cool stuff about that, or just about the gaps between Minecraft blocks that you might be curious about. So if you do all enjoy this video, like and let me know, because it helps out the channel and lets me know you are curious about building gaps and stuff like that. But with that said, let's get straight into it, shall we? And let's start with the very first one here, which is the smallest gap you can walk between. So you've probably seen this one before, but just in case you haven't, it's very handy to know that this is the smallest gap that only the player can go between. No mob besides like the chicken and silverfish can get between here, which is really handy if you want to have a gap between, builds and stuff that, again, it seems like you shouldn't be able to walk through here, but you actually can. It's 10 pixels wide, so you can see there's very little leeway, and it's very, very handy because, again, you can walk through it, but it's not very handy for the viewpoint thing because, again, they can see you just as clearly as you can see them, and also it's not very handy because of the fact that, again, it's so easy to see through this because it's made out of, fences. So, yeah, if you want to have a more fortified thing, then what I recommend is, first of all here, the biggest of the gaps that's just about recommendable is having lots of fences with, this half step here. So the reason this is handy is because although this allows for lots of visibility on both sides, like they can see you just as clearly as you can see them, it means that one, if you want to fire with dispensers, you can do that pretty reliably. Like, look at this, I can fire like 70% of the time over this and right at them. So if you want to have like an automated home defense system, this is probably the best way to do that, and it's pretty cool because, again, they're just looking at dispenser and they're being fired at the same time, which is kind of cool. But it also works like this because if you're firing at someone else, you're protected for like most of your body, especially if you crouch just like this. Most of your body is actually protected here, as you can see. However, on their side, they can actually barely see you, and they think they can fire through the fence, but they can't. Even these gaps right here, if you look like you're between there, they can't fire it at all, which is kind of an interesting little thing that you can use to your advantage if, you're playing against people who aren't too experienced. But if you want a smaller gap and you want to make it a bit more risky or a bit better, then there's two things you can do. The first one is a similarly sized gap, but using lava. So again, this is a very big risk because the sword cuts both ways, but bear in mind that when you're hidden behind lava just like this, again, very little of you is visible. You can just about see the tip of the head, which means that if you want to get the jump on someone with a lava shot, this is the best way to do so, because if your arrow fires through lava just like that, okay, I actually missed the lava, and now in the lava itself, but if you actually can fire through lava just like that, then you're going to see that it actually lights the arrow on fire, which is really handy. So you light them on fire and you hit them from nowhere. So yeah, this is really handy, but obviously the same thing works in reverse. They can fire things at you, and you're going to have the same thing happen there. So let's just fire this again. As you can see, they can fire arrows at you, so you got to kind of watch out in that regard. But on the other hand, again, it's an amazing way to get a jump start on someone, and if you just want to have like a sneaky place to like watch out for someone, then using this is the best way. Again, this is another half block gap, and if you're wondering how to do this, you need to grab yourself some lava, place on something like this, and it'll kind of spew out into that kind of direction, because again, bear in mind there's lava there that's pouring out sideways into this diagonal fashion, which again, if you're crouched behind, you're mostly invisible from. So yeah, that's a pretty small gap, but it gets even smaller because if you decide to go with an entirely walled thing, let's say cobblestone, the stone brick wall, and then you just have one stair brick facing sideways, then you can make these gaps that are just 1/4 of a block wide, which looks like this, by the way, in case you're curious, which is very, very tiny. To show you how small that looks from the outside, let's place an armor stand there. So let's place one just over here, let's say. Place an armor stand there. Oh wait, I guess it should probably be sideways. But yeah, let's just say he's facing this way, or let's not actually. Let's say he's facing this way. Place our armor stand just over, I'm having problems here. Place our armor stand just over there like that. And then let's see how much we can see, because you're going to see just from out here that it's a very, very, very tiny gap, and you can just about see what's going on there, but trying to hit that is 4 times harder than even hitting a single block, which means even if I'm trying as hard as I can right here, oh wow, second hit again, but yeah, if you try as hard as you can, you have to kind of stand still and really focus on that, whereas they can see you wide in the open, because bear in mind, again, from this little angle, they can see pretty well at you, and then they can fire at you and just be like, okay, well, you're over there, you're kind of going to die, whereas you're trying, if you can fit through there properly, whereas you're going to be having the hardest struggles on the other side, well, I guess you as in the person attacking my base, which is what makes this so darn handy. So yeah, this is a quarter block gap, but this isn't even the smallest gap you can get, because bear in mind that, that's, like 8 pixels by 8 pixels, or 4 by 4, it's a lot, it's actually, a lot going on there. I think that's like 5 by 5, 10 by 10, something like that. There's still a lot of pixels going on there, but you can get even smaller using something that I showed off in my floating sand video. So again, if you haven't watched it, I don't blame you, but well, you should go watch it though. But yeah, if you're curious as to what that is, basically you can stack snow up to 7, and then you can place sand or diamond or really any block you want on top of it, and you create this 1/8 of a block thick gap, which is really handy, because if you have a half block of snow underneath it, you kind of sink into it just like this, and you can see the outside world like this, whereas the outside world sees the tiniest bit of you. Again, using our little armor stand trick, which is pretty handy here, this is how much the world can see of you, so bear in mind, this is what it looks like, and even if they can somehow spot, like, oh, there's a toy cat behind there, I spot his name, or something like that, trying to fire at you is impossible. Like, you're not going to be able to fit it through that big of a gap, because it's such a tiny gap that arrows can only just about fit through it on the other side anyway. Let me show you how it's like on this side. Like, you have to know exactly what you're doing, or arrows won't even go through on this side, which means this is the best fortification to have if arrows are your primary concern. Again, just bear in mind, look at this. Look how well you can shoot off people out there. Again, let's say the ender pearl is our enemy. Boom, look at that, we can fire them. Or like the gravel over there. You can fire anything at a reasonably close to medium range, just like this, with a pretty decent success rate. Let's play out a fireball to make this even cooler. You can fire a pretty decent success rate, just like this, but everyone else cannot fire at you unless they're amazing with their bow shot. And again, no matter how well you sit here and trying to get an arrow through that is next to impossible, which means this is basically the one-way fortification. If you want to protect your base and, see what's going on out there without them being able to see you, and fire at people out there without them being able to fire back at you, this is probably the best way of doing that, honestly. Like, it just works so well. Those are infinity arrows, so I guess having fire arrows is the closest thing to a counter, because you can block off the vision, but still, the fact that I can fire out there, you have to kind of fire at the top block here, and they can't fire at me, is just an amazing thing, and yeah, it's a useful thing. Also, if you want to have more vision, you just have to crouch, and you can see like this, so yeah, just a pro little tip, but when you're crouching, you can't fire because your arrows just don't go high enough, so yeah, useful. Wow, that hurts. Yeah, useful little pro tip you might not have known. Basically, having 7 layers of snow and then having sand or anything on top of it is the most amazing fortification, and I think it's going to be the best one on this list, even though it's not the smallest gap in Minecraft. So I would say smaller gap, just in case vision is more important to you, or you want to do some stuff some weird ways, because I would say it's going to have to be the banner gap. So yeah, like I said, this is a block that's 2 little pixels wide, so you can see on the diamond block there, it's 2 pixels wide. The gap between a banner and a solid block next to it is just 1.5 pixels wide. Look at that floor. You can see it goes most of the way into this pixel, but then there's a spare one there, which means you have this tiny gap right here, which is amazing for vision. Look how very small that gap is. Like, again, place our armor stand on the other side, show you just how small this thing is from this side, so I guess we'll place it like that, shall we? Yeah, just show you how small this gap is on the other side. Obviously, it's a little bit more, attention drawing because it's a banner, but you actually can't see the banner on the other side, the arm stand on the other side there, and you'll only just be able to see people through this tiny little gap right here. Again, it's 1.5 pixels wide, which is absolutely tiny. So yeah, if you want to be able to fire at people and have full banner range, because bear in mind, the downside and upside of this is that people can fire through the banner at you, like, because, banners don't stop arrows, which means you can just fire at them like this without them seeing you at all, like, peek at them, be like, oh, they're over there, then fire through there, and they're going to have no idea how to fire back. I mean, obviously they might spot after a while that they can fire through the banner, but a lot of people aren't going to be thinking like that. A lot of people just think, we're dying, and run away. And also, another clever way to kind of make that better is if you actually stack yourselves up so you're going through quite a bit of the, banner, just like this, let's say, then you can make it even more confusing people because the arrows are coming from up there, and if they try to fire down there, it's not going to hit you. So again, some weird tricks, but this is the smallest gap so far, just 1.5 pixels wide, but there is one gap that's even smaller. Again, it's mostly better for vision than it is for firing arrows, because it is the gap between a chest and a full block. So this is smaller than 1.5 pixels because it's just a single pixel wide, and that gap is actually so small you cannot fire arrows through it. So again, bear in mind, no matter how hard you're going to try this one, at least I haven't been able to just yet, firing an arrow through here seems to be impossible. Like, I'm going to try a whole bunch of attempts right here, but they're all going to get... Oh, okay. You can just about do it through there. There's the tiniest little... I think an arrow's pixel wide. There's the tiniest little way you can do it, but it's not practical to look at someone and fire at them at the same time, because, again, I was looking at the stone block right there and just trying my hardest, so let's try this again. Okay, so yeah, if you're looking at the stone block, you can just about fire at someone, so it's technically possible, but realistically not, which means that it's an amazing fortification, because no one can fire through that gap at you. Again, they're going to have no idea how to do that perfect shot from this angle. Oh wait, can we do it? We actually got pretty close, but yeah, no one can do that perfect shot from this angle, so it's basically a way to look at people, have them be able to see you, but be entirely protected from arrows, and just be like, yeah, try and hit me. Guess what? You can't. And then you can use this to maybe set up a trap. Let's say you have a bunch of TNT traps, activate them here, like have a lever or something. Let's say you want to just, go to somewhere better to snipe them from. You can do that by having gaps this size in your wall. So yeah, what is the smallest gap in Minecraft? To my knowledge, it is the 1 pixel gap between a chest and a solid block. But it's a 2 pixel gap between chest and chest because of this. But still, you can use this to your advantage if you really want to. The fact that it's a chest means that people can't actually, get too close to it and fire. So maybe that's useful. But yeah, let me know what you think about all of these gaps in the comments down below. Let me know which one is going to be most useful to you, because I still think this is the most amazing little revolution in, like base tactics, because then if you have one of these things, no one can get to you, no one can kill you, but you can kill them in a way that I think is just kind of spectacular. But let me know what you think, comments down below, like if you did like it, share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. So, goodbye everyone.